Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to try and decode the pretty complex and honestly kind of confusing world of getting your U.S. documents officially recognized for use in another country. You know, whether it's for a new job, a visa, or maybe you're studying overseas, making sure your paperwork is actually accepted is, well, it's a critical first step.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into why this whole thing feels like such a headache to begin with. Then, we're going to define the official solution, this thing called an apostille. After that, we'll walk through exactly how you get one, step by step. Then we'll weigh the pros and cons. Should you do it yourself or hire a service? And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the key things you need to remember.
All right, so let's kick things off with a feeling that I'm betting a lot of you know all too well when you first dive into this process. Just pure confusion.
I mean, this comment from a Reddit user just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? The second you start searching, you're just hit with this wave of websites, and it's so hard to tell which ones are legit and what the real process even is. It creates a ton of uncertainty right out of the gate. So this is the big question we're here to solve. You've got this official document, your birth certificate, your diploma, whatever. But to an official in, say, Spain or Japan, it's just a piece of paper. How do they know it's not a fake? How do you give them that official proof that it's the real deal? It's a really high-stakes question, and it can definitely feel like you're lost in a maze of red tape.
The good news is, there is a clear solution to this international puzzle. So let's break down the single most important term you need to know: apostille. Honestly, this is the best way to get your head around it. Just like you need a passport to travel and be accepted in another country, your document needs an apostille. It's an official certificate that gets physically attached to your document, and that's what allows it to travel internationally and be accepted as totally valid and authentic.
Now here's what's really interesting. What an apostille actually certifies. It's a super important distinction. The apostille doesn't verify the contents of your document. It's not confirming that you actually graduated with honors. What it is doing is verifying that the signature of the official on the document, like the university registrar or the county clerk, is legitimate. It's creating a chain of trust. So this is absolutely critical. The first thing you have to know is where your document is going. If the country is one of the 100+ nations that are part of this thing called the Hague Convention, you get to use the simple, streamlined apostille process. But if it's not a member country, you have to go down this much more complicated path called authentication and legalization, which can mean getting stamps from multiple U.S. agencies and even the foreign embassy. It's a whole different beast.
Okay, let's get practical. You know what an apostille is, so how the heck do you actually get one?
The very first thing you've got to do is figure out what kind of document you're holding. Was it issued by a state or local authority, like a birth certificate or a state university diploma? Or was it issued by a federal agency, like an FBI background check? This is super important because that's what tells you who has the power to issue the apostille. And here's that journey broken down into 3 core steps. Now, for a lot of documents, it all starts with getting it notarized. Public records like a birth certificate might not need this, but private ones like a bank statement definitely do. Then, step 2, you find the right government office. For state documents, that's the Secretary of State in the state where the document was issued. For federal docs, it's the U.S. Department of State. And finally, you bundle it all up, the forms, the document, the fee, and submit your request. It's a clear chain of command, from local to state or federal.
Okay, so now that you get the process, you've got a decision to make. It's kind of a fork in the road. Are you going to navigate this maze yourself, or are you going to hire a professional guide?
And this table really lays it all out. Look, the do-it-yourself path is without a doubt cheaper. The official government fee might only be about $15, while a service could easily charge $80 or more. But, and this is a big but, you're trading that money for time and for risk. You're stuck with government processing times, and one tiny mistake on a form can get the whole thing rejected and send you right back to the start. Services cost more, but what they're selling you is speed and peace of mind.
So if you're leaning towards using a service, this is pretty much what you're paying for. You get an expert holding your hand. You don't have to go stand in line at some government office. They catch common mistakes before they become a problem. I mean, it really just comes down to that classic trade-off. Are you willing to pay a little extra to save yourself a whole lot of time and stress?
So we've covered a ton of ground here. Let's boil all of this down into the most important points to remember as you get ready to tackle this with your own documents. Think of this as your final checklist. 4 simple things. 1, just remember, it's a passport for your document. 2, figure out if your document is state or federal. 3, check if your destination country is on that Hague Convention list.
And 4, decide what's more valuable to you right now, saving money with the DIY route or saving time and hassle with a pro. If you keep these 4 things in mind, this whole confusing process becomes way more manageable.
Ultimately, the whole goal here was just to give you the map, to demystify this process so you can make the right choice for your situation, your budget, and your timeline. So, which path are you going to choose? Thanks for joining us.